We are ready to go. Brian, I'm happy that you are here. And let's dive right into the intro and then let's go back in time to understand who you are, where you're coming from, and what you guys are doing today.
Super. Okay. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. Really appreciate it. Brian Walker, founder of REVEL, born and raised here in Europe, Czech Republic. Left at 20 to US, pursued the film career and tech startups, and then been there for about 18 years. And recently we decided with the family that maybe we wanted to be a little bit closer to our roots and to our families. My parents are getting older, and my wife's parents are getting older. And we have a 3.5-year-old, soon to be 4-year-old, actually. So she's almost four, daughter. And we wanted her to explore the European cultures. And we were like, okay, why not? And we rented our house in America and kind of just pack up a bunch of suitcases, the essentials. And when I say essentials, my wife packed us into like 14 suitcases, so it's a little bit more than essentials. But when you're moving in an airplane across the ocean and you're kind of packing your life into suitcases, it's especially for with the kid and the wife, it's a little bit more difficult. But I think I fit into one suitcase or two. A couple
Fe
t-shirts.
Feeding the stereotypes. Maybe before we dive into the time machine, maybe a few quick words what you guys are doing today.
Sure. So Revel, for people that are in the robotics or AI space, or they're in technology in general, I guess, a good analogy is, Revel is kind of a scale AI for physical AI. So what we're focusing on is data for robotics. We're on a mission to create the world's largest real world product digital twin catalog or library that the robot manufacturers like Figure, Tesla, Optimus could use to train their robots specifically with actual high fidelity models of products that people use in factories, warehouses, or their household, and so on. We obviously, the people that know the industry, the large language models like ChatGPT had the benefit that the internet is full of, words and text, which we call tokens. And you could train these foundational models in billions of parameters and trillions of tokens of words. And that's why we are getting the results and sort of we had the moment with the ChatGPT. But with robotics, to make, the Optimus, the Figures, so the robots of the future, which I think is going to be the biggest product of them all, they're kind of, they're not really useful right now. They can't do a whole lot of things, and we want to change that. We want to accelerate that. And so one of the things that we're focusing on that has been recently enabled by NVIDIA is simulated training. Run, multiple simulations parallel on one GPU where you can do 2 hours of simulated training that will basically represent like 10 years of training of one robot in a real world. So the scale and the trajectory of the training is really exponential. And what we're focusing on is partnering with real world companies that make products, from household appliances and tools, gardening tools, factory machines like CNC machines and so on. We approach them and say, here's the robotic era and kind of where we are right now, and this is what we're doing. And since they already manufacture these products and these tools, they usually have pretty detailed assemblies or CAD files like SolidWorks, Fusion 360, and so on. Siemens NX is a really great example. And they provide us with the data and the metadata, and we convert their product to its exact digital twin replica, 101 scale. And we add all the physics, the mechanics, all the little buttons and how the tool operates, what happens when you squeeze the trigger on like a drill, this much or that much, what is the toggle that switches between the speeds and so on. We put all that into the digital twin, and then the robotics companies provide their digital twin. And we use now LLM, large language model like Claude or GPT from OpenAI, and we say, okay, you have this tool. Let's just say for the example, you have like a cordless vacuum cleaner from Dyson that you might have at home. or your friends might have at home, and you have Tesla Optimus from humanoid robotic. When we say, okay, this tool, this robot, and then we go to the LLM and say, create all the scenarios of training that would help the robot to understand how to operate the tool and kind of in which environments. And then it basically creates a training protocol. And then we go in and with another large language model, do what's called domain randomization. And we change certain things like
Wait,
frictions
wait, wait.
and
You're
whatnot.
already in the
Details.
you're already in the founder mode, and I like the enthusiasm that you have for the company and the product. But this is something I let's dig deeper into that later on.
Sure, sure.
We are rushing through the important parts of this podcast. I always like the idea of trying to disassemble or unfold the early ages of my guests, because I do think there's some similarities but also some uniqueness in each and every founder and person that I talk on the podcast. I would like to understand how you ended up. And for me, the situation even become more interesting because we have a little chat. We had a little chat before this podcast, and we were talking about some topics that were part of your life, right? Which are
Mm.
totally different from the things that you do today. So maybe we go a little bit into the time machine and go back to as early as you like and feel comfortable with sharing, and then we work our way through the story.
So if you're kind of hinting on how did I ended up with a company that's building basically a library of data for humanoid robots, tech, I'm a big tech. I want a really exciting and fun future, something that like I've heard this from Elon and others many times. There's a really good friend of mine. She has a great podcast, Cleo Abrams. Um, Huge if true. And what I really love about this message is like looking at all of these different problems and challenges in the world and how technology could solve them. And I guess I've always naturally felt like this was really something that excited me. So following space exploration and robotics was always kind of there for me. But my career actually started, when I was born and raised here in Czech Republic, and throughout some summer jobs, I work on some films here at Prague in the Barrandov studios. Connected with the right people, had some really great mentorship. And when I was kind of finishing school and was thinking about extending my school and study years, I had an opportunity to say, someone who had the power to basically pick up the phone call and say, "Hey, do you want to kind of go play in the NFL?" I'm like, when you say play in the NFL, what do you mean? Well, go go to Hollywood and work in the film, in the big leagues. And I said yes. And at 20, I moved to US and went to work on a really great project with some great people and visionaries. And we were pioneering a whole lot of new film technology. And so and it took us about 4 years to make this picture. And, I learned what goes into sort of innovating on existing beliefs and kind of thinking out of the box and coming up with something new. And that was a pretty revolutionary project. I don't know if you're familiar with Avatar, Jim Cameron's Avatar. That kind of propelled my career then forward and opened up doors into a lot of different opportunities and venues and different producers and directors and people to work with. And I kind of continue that trajectory, got into more the tech side of filmmaking, and was really interested in XR. We call it XR, it's extended reality, and replacing basically the blue screens and green screens with real digital environments, which really took shape on a TV series called Mandalorian. I don't know if you're familiar with the Star Wars Mandalorian series.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, I got to know the guys from Epic Games. They built this wonderful tool called Unreal Engine, where you can basically create digital worlds for video games or for cinematics, and they enabled a couple breakthrough technologies that enabled us to create like photorealistic worlds that took it into the filmmaking. I got to experience how their team work. And when we were done with the series with the TV, I was like, hey, I really want to understand the game design and the logic and software as a service, and just kind of got into software. This is 2016, 2017. And they're like, sure. And I basically kind of just embedded myself into um, that environment and world and started building companies, and I had successfully built few software companies and few little components. Got on the AI and like the early stages of GPT also got on my radar when they were not so popular, but I know they were going to be big. And then, you
Wait a
know,
second. So the movies that you mentioned, that was something where the technology was being used, you were talking about, or was that something that you've been involved with, right? Because 2016 is way before The Mandalorian, and
no,
the
Mando was like 2018, 2019, the season one, right? But it took about a year or two to develop up the technology and the pipeline to even start shooting. Um, that technology originated on a movie called Jungle Book, where already some screens and certain other technologies were used to kind of. So it was it wasn't like an overnight kind of a success or breakthrough of the technology. It had its moment, but what I meant when like working in Avatar was like, look, um, Jim wanted to do, and Jim Cameron wanted to do something that has never been done before. He had the idea for Avatar, I think, in the 80s or 90s, and he had some dreams. He penciled it down into paper and then put it in a drawer because technologically, the cameras and the visual effects weren't there to do what he wanted to do. So he went on to do Titanic, and then took a break, and then really started to kind of see if visuals effects and the other kind of components, camera and in-camera motion capture and all of those different technologies were kind of catching up to his vision. And that's where 2006, 2005, the project sort of took a start. I think he took about $10 million of R&D from a studio before he was going to take the big money and say, let's go make the movie, and did like a 12, 14-minute proof of concept, um, which blew away the studio executives. And they were like, okay. And they threw the rest of the money into Avatar. And then, it took about 3 to 4 years with post and everything before the first Avatar kind of came out. And there was a bit, and you had the big gap between the second one, but so much new technology in terms of motion capture, computer graphics, and whatnot were developed for that movie, and I was able to witness how technology like that is built, who is involved, how decisions are made on what's to focus on, what not to focus on, and where to take, sort of which directions to take. And that was a real big eye-opening for me of like, and learning curve of like how technologies and breakthroughs in technologies are made.
um, maybe you can help out with a few like years, because I think I said this when we first talked. You seem so young, right? And so the first Avatar, you were saying, developing the movie took a few years. I think it came out in 2009 or something, and um,
8.
crazy time it goes by. Fast. Yeah. So you're saying leaving Europe, going to the US, going to California, and how was that? And what were you doing when you arrived? And you said you got in contact with a few people involved. So what was your role? What was your work? And how do you get into that? I think this is something that interests me.
Yeah, yeah. So here working in Europe, I had a friend whose mom was basically working in the film industry here in Czech Republic, and a lot of the Hollywood movies, when going to Europe, they come to Prague or Budapest and a couple of these cities that have great incentives for films from US to come and film in Europe. There's established sort of sound stages and crews and whatnot. And during certain summer breaks or times of the year where we would be like on school break, these films would, the different departments like wardrobe department or costume department would need help. So we would just come in as what's called day players. So from early stage on, like 12, 13 years old, I was here and there on a film set, helping out extras to make sure that they have the right wardrobe they're supposed to have for the scene that is being shot. And so, I've had credits in film from very early on. And like I said, I met the right people. I've found someone who was a big producer that just finished shooting a lot of really cool stuff in London, and he kind of took me under his wing, mentorship wise. This young guy, he was asking, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I want to make my own movies." I was always more interesting. This is the days of CDs and DVDs, right? My dad would come home from work. He brought a DVD of a new film, and I was always more interesting watching the behind the scenes of how they made the movie than the
Mm.
movie itself. And I think that's where it started. So I wanted to make movies. I wanted to write scripts and make movies. I really love the vision of directors like Quentin Tarantino and Jim Cameron, where they wrote the script, they made the movie, they did the post, and they kind of really made it their baby. And I wanted to be close to that. And as I work through the ropes of the different positions on the film set, I learned or found out that one of the positions that is closest to the director and the actors, without being the director, the person who's entrusted with this whole thing, is a position called first assistant director. And you're kind of responsible for telling the actors what they're going to do in the next scene, where their starting position is, where their end position is, and where the cameras are going to be, and coordinating with the director of photography and the camera crew and the lighting crew, how the scene is going to take shape, and translating that to the director, the technical side, and his vision, creative vision. So you have a director. He's looking at the monitors. He's really there for the actors and for the performance and making sure that the bigger picture, the vision for the movie is being translated. And then you have the crew and the first assistant director who's kind of leading the crew in terms of, what are we doing? Who's supposed to be when and why? And what are we doing today? And how is it happening? Is it safe? And do we need how quickly in time? You're kind of the timekeeper. You got to keep the whip because, you're constantly, no matter the size of the budget, if it's $2 million, $200,000, or $200 million, the problems are always the same. They're just, more inflated. There's never enough time. There's always not enough money for some shot or for some scene or for some actor to be there for a couple more days and so on. So I kind of started in trainee position of a trainee of assistant director, and you have second, or in Europe we say third assistant director, and then you have second assistant director and first assistant director. It's different layers of, third assistant director really navigates the background. Second assistant director really does the office work and preps all the call sheets, which is kind of this document that everyone gets. And it doesn't matter how big of a movie star you are, you have a call sheet that has your name on it, what you're supposed to have, when you're supposed to be in wardrobe, what you're doing, which scenes are you doing. You give them sides, which is parts of the script that they need to learn because, movies are not shot the way you see them, right? They might be shot from the end to the middle to the beginning, then back to the end and so on. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I got to be with the actors. I got to be friends with the actors, the producers, and the directors, and be there and see how different pieces of the technologies that we were bringing into these projects were layered in. And that was a big opportunity. And then I kind of worked myself all the way up very quickly to first assistant director on some smaller projects here in Europe. And then, I got the question like what I wanted to do next. And I said, I still want to make movies, but I felt like the opportunities for filmmaking in Europe weren't as big as in America, obviously. And even though like American productions would come to Europe, the origination and the crew and the main folks that will behind the project will, picked in America. And so I was like, okay, I guess, I gotta go to US. So I was deciding between continuing like studies in school or going to US. I think it was 19, I turned 20, like 15 days or 12 days or something after I arrived in America. And I was like, okay, so I was 20, very young, when I left, just suitcases, myself, no parents.
Which year is that?
2005, 2006, 2005 or 2006. Yeah, something like that.
And I'm trying to picture that. So you're arriving in the US. You know maybe a few people, but
Oh, I didn't know anybody.
oh, nice. So getting there, because I mean, this is obviously the place where you go when you're an inspiring person that wants to do anything in film, right? Go to the US, go to Los Angeles, go to Hollywood. Yeah, I mean, even though this is mainly about robotics and AI, we'll get there, right? But I'm curious, naturally curious, and in those moments where the struggle is real, right? You are there, you don't know anybody, but you still need somewhere to sleep. You need someone, you need something to eat. You need a job. All those visa topics are coming, right? Maybe you are so kind and spending a few moments there.
Yeah, so the visa got handled by the studio, and basically it was like a H-1B or O-1. I think I had two at the early stages of my career in uh, in US. Um, and the studio will put you up, like if the director or the team, the production team really wants you, they'll make it happen. So they'll put up a place for you. And I don't know if you've ever been on a film set, but the catering and the food is pretty amazing. So as a first assistant director, you really kind of live on the film set. You're the first one in, first one out, last one out. Sorry, like the first one in, last one out. So sometimes I was so tired, I just fell asleep on the set and woke up the next day morning and just like, okay, let's go. So I just slept in the trailer in the on the set or in the studio. And yeah, so you get a check and you put it in your bank account, but you don't really need to spend any money on transport because the studio sends a driver for you to pick you up if you're at the level of position that I was in where it's important. And like and or you are nearby where we're shooting. Because the movie I was working on was predominantly shot on a soundstage. And also was shot between Manhattan Beach Studios and New Zealand, which is I didn't know when I came to US. I was like, oh yeah, Manhattan Beach, great, like South Bay, gonna spend a lot of time on beaches and surfing and whatever. And they were like, oh, we're going to New Zealand. I was like, oh damn, okay. It's just another experience of its own. But
What
anyways,
what was the name of the movie? Can you remember?
Avatar.
So that was the first.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought you said you worked your way up and then you got into this position very quickly on, but being the first movie
Uh,
on ever, okay, that is crazy.
I worked myself up here from like the age of 12 to like age of 18, 19, every summer working these different jobs. And I was helping with the stunt crew. I was then helping with the camera crew, and I really got to learn the ropes. And there was a producer who had a lot of these connections in Hollywood, like a big connections in Hollywood. And he was American. He moved to Czech Republic, started a company here to help local production companies to basically facilitate US production companies shooting in the Czech Republic or other countries. And so he would always be around on set, and he would just kind of like, "What are you doing? What are you doing here? What are you working on today? What's your role in this movie?" And we would talk movies, we would talk this, and it was great. It was great mentorship. So then when he was like, "Oh, you finishing school? What are you gonna do?" And I was like, I want to make movies. And he's like, he made it happen for me basically. So but like I spent years on the film set and working behind the scenes from minute PA positions, which by the way, all the respect to production assistants because, they make the set to really run and go around because without the just simple task jobs that somebody has to do them, just like the camera truck needs to get unloaded or loaded or this or that, and just you got three PAs that will hop onto it and get that done in 5 minutes and things like that, or like set up the cafeteria, whatever. So um, tremendous respect for production assistants, and I've done my fair share of PAing or production assisting as well. So yeah, when I was offered the opportunity, it was a big chance. Also, a movie like that has a big team, AD team. It's not like it's one person. There's different units that shoot like stunts and so on, and they all have different directors and first assistant directors and so on. Because when you have that big of a project, that many moving parts, often the crew or the film splits up into different little bits and pieces, and you have crews that go do something we call B-roll. They go out and kind of shoot all of the additional photography, and that's a completely different director than like the big name director who's on the movie. Some big explosion stunt scenes where it's not really the actors, but it's their stunt doubles that might shoot in another state or another country, so there's a unit there. And so I obviously got an opportunity to get on to all of these different teams and work as an assistant director and find my footing. Um, and it kind of, that kind of catapulted my career from there forward.
I mean, as we talked very briefly early on, I'm a huge movie buff myself, and I always find this maybe more fascinating than people listening to this podcast. I think it's fascinating, and I just as I'm so consumed in my bubble at the moment, I don't have really time to watch any movies, or I don't listening to any news. But I do think I saw something that a new Avatar is upcoming, and I think
I
that.
think it's yeah, it's called yeah, it's Ash and Fire, I think, or Ash or Fire or
I
something
don't
like
know.
that.
I don't know.
We had the
I
Way
just
of
saw something.
Yeah, there was a second one that came out was Way of Water. I think it was last year or maybe already 2 years ago, and then you have Ash and Fire coming out this December, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
crazy. Mm.
so this December or next year, but I think it's this year. I think it's this year.
Yeah. Um.
So
Yeah. Thanks.
there's
Thanks for.
definitely going to be another technologic. There's definitely going to be like another technological leap. Each movie, I think, is kind of testing the limits of what's possible in. And I don't know if you saw that, but Jim Cameron, he got on board of Stability AI as a board member or advisor because Stability AI builds Gen AI models, generative AI models, and he really wanted to be kind of um, there as the models are being trained and seeing the results and what the true use case is going to be. Um, I'm sure you've seen the generative videos that are, circulating in the internet, and you look at what we had 2 years ago, a year ago, and now it's really getting hard to tell what's real and what's not real. Specifically for someone like my mom or my parents, my mom showed me something the other day on WhatsApp that somebody sent her, and she was so excited. She was like sharing this with me, and she was like, "How funny this video! That's amazing! This cat and a baby are watching a phone, and the baby makes a fart, and the cat laughs, and I was like, Mom, like that's an AI," and she was like, "What?" She didn't get it, so um, I was like, oh. I had that moment of like, I felt like I needed to protect them a little bit too. It's like, hey, you need to educate yourself a little bit. Don't pick up any crazy phone calls. Um, yeah, yeah, it's been, you know, every time there is the good, there's a little bit of the scammy, the bad, that comes up. Um,
As you
so
said, we need to educate ourselves and be aware of that. I think it is the only thing that we can do because, as you said, the technology is getting so good that not only our parents will be fooled by that, it's ourselves that will be fooled by that very easily in the next few years. But maybe this is a good step to get out of the film business because I think there will be a huge transformation happening there as well, right? As you said, um, so many people and places, and a lot of these things can be now being produced also with technology that didn't exist 9 years ago. But maybe we can use this as a step to tell me how you got into what you guys are doing today. You gave a little longer intro about what you guys are aiming at, but maybe we can spend a few moments on how this got together, right? Because even though technology was involved in the filmmaking part is still different from what you guys are doing, right? And how do you got to leave from that, that was the passion of the majority of your life, and now being fully immersed in tech. How did this come together? Was there a specific moment, a person? Maybe you can tell me a bit about this.
The reason I think I love movies so much and has loved them as as a kid, and specifically science fiction, because I love the vision of a future like come something like a straight out of a Star Trek movie, you know. Um, the utopian kind of vision of no meaning of money, abundance of everything. You have machines like the replicators. You can say hot coffee, and there's a hot coffee, you know, and and I just so I think I was affected by this and sort of in you know it's just really infused into me myself, like my being of, and I love science fiction so much that I want to make it reality. I just want that to be now. I want I want humanity to be out there among the stars, exploring the universe and searching for big answers and questions. And you know, I want my own C3PO, as Elon says, like you know, a little bit better version, hopefully. But that ties into the robotics. I saw someone who's dreamt science fiction his whole life and made incredible movies like Jim Cameron. And then when Avatar was finished, do you know what he went to do? Do you know what he did? So he took a break from movies and decided that he's going to build a submarine and he was going to go dive into the deepest part of the ocean in Mariana Trench. And basically for like 6 or 8 years, went from filmmaker creating science fiction to making science, and went down to the Mariana Trench and become an ocean explorer. And so I was like, oh, like films are such a great gateway of thinking and imagining the future and having a vision. And then you just go find the right people, you get them excited about this sort of a vision and say, let's go do something really great. And we'll figure out how to do that in the process of doing it. And that's what we did. And I saw the AI rise and the rise of robotics for many years because we use robotics arms and cranes and whatnot in the film industry for years. Um, Very much so a tool, an extension of human movement and so on. And but then we're shooting these movies where there's always these droids or these robots that can do all these cool things, and they can be kind of your pop, you know, like uh, uh, in a lot of the Star Wars movies or the Star Trek movies. You know, you had Star Trek, you had Data, and like a bunch of different variations of robotics and humanoids. And so when I saw that the humanoid robotics companies will start getting traction even from investors and they start to build like prototypes, I was like, yeah, like let's make this happen. Let's do anything we can. Like, I want to be a part of it. I want to do something that is going to accelerate this, and let's make the future exciting and good, and let's um, create something that's useful and that can help people and industries. And I saw an opportunity and you know, had in this sort of science fiction background and this drive to make science fiction reality. That's kind of how it came together, you know. And I have a few friends that were in this part of the software development and this part of software development. And I had a kind of a conversation like I'm having with you right now. We chatted about movies and the vision for a future. A lot of my friends were starting to have families. Like, you know, the transition to where I really started to build like a tech company was few years or just as I was thinking with my wife, well, we have a family and a child, and what world she'll grow up in, what will she need a driver's license, you know? Will there be a college? Like, will she go to college? Probably not, you know? And kind of what that will look like. Will money have meaning if we're truly in this, you know, economy of abundance where robots can do everything? What is the new meaning of human life? And someone, you're a father, I'm a father, right? Like I think about that daily. And I just wanted to I wanted to help shape the future. I didn't want to just sit back and be an observer and be the audience member. Wanted to be in the director chair. I wanted to tell my story and my point of view, and I wanted to build something that would hopefully accelerate that in a good way. This is why, there was an early version of Revel, which oddly enough we might do now later, but it was more focused on um, sort of partnering with people of influence or some kind of unique ability and asking them to say, hey, could we take that feature, implement it into robotics so other people around the world, when they do get their humanoid robot into their household, could maybe enjoy some of your um, excellence or some of your talent right at home. Like a good
Yeah.
example would be Gordon Ramsay. You know Gordon Ramsay, like the chef?
Mhm.
So we're like, could we go to Gordon and say, hey, Gordon, can we take all your knowledge and your voice and your likeness with your permissions and everything, with your training and with your, could we train a robot to cook a meal like you can so that people could maybe buy like a subscription to Michelin star Gordon Ramsay meal prepped at their home? And so we were kind of thinking, wow, that's a cool idea, or like that's, a little bit of science fiction, but learned that that path was really long in terms of when that would be actually possible with the humanoid robots. So we took a little bit of a shift and doubled down on the usefulness and wanting to do something that is going to make the robots more useful in terms of the transition of, the crazy labor shortages that we have. How can we help with that? How can we make the transition of current economy to the economy of abundance, this kind of positive vision of the future that I want to live in? How can we accelerate that? How can I help make that happen? And so we dig into more robotics, figure out what they're really, really struggling, and basically found a little niche for ourselves, which is the data, the training process. So kind of becoming the teachers, or however you want to call it, for the robots. We want to give them the necessary tools and data they need to be useful to people, to companies, to factories, to um, you know anyone.
When was that? When was that moment that you guys decided, okay, let's build a company out of that? We Was the technology there? Was the idea there? And then let's see, as you said earlier on, was there the vision? And then along the way, we're building the vision that we have, and we're trying to assemble the components that are necessary to, yeah, to reach to achieve that. And did you form an entity? Yeah, how was that? How was that? And did you say one of you guys said, no, I'm gonna stay with my job, but to provide, but a few of us, we like how was that to make the decision and finally yeah, form a company and build a product?
Yeah, I said I said to every I was in a fortunate enough situation financially where I was like, let me take a little bit of a time where I'm really going to go deep on this, where some of my some of the other guys on the team right now um, had or have full-time jobs at big companies with huge salaries, and they're really in demand, especially as the AI and robotics and everything's kind of on a rise. So I didn't want to extract anybody from the security of that before really putting certain things in place and validating the idea. Like um, we looked at the problem, and we saw that there's sort of problems and solutions um, in different aspects of the pipeline of what we're building. So we knew like, oh, simulation was kind of coming we were looking at, about a year ago or year and a half ago, we were looking at like simulation's going to probably play a huge role. Didn't know exactly how much, but we started to see some really great progress there. You had Figure version 1, then version 2, and you saw the leap, or Optimus version 1, version 2. You saw the leaps between Boston Dynamics and other robot manufacturers, like their version 1s, some version 2s, some version 3s, some version 4s. And we're like, wow, well, it's like the hardware itself is exponentially kind of, or not exponentially, but, the curve start to really pick up speed. And so we felt like, oh, this will probably be possible in 1 or 2 years to achieve some actual um, market fit and usefulness. But what I wanted to do, so it's like, yeah, let's do an entity, to US-based C Corp, favorable for startups. And then now that the process, I was also moving to Europe, right? So my whole family, so then we did an entity here in Europe. Same company, basically just kind of can cover the US and European market easily. Um, and I started to kind of assemble the team of people that I would wanted to build a company with, and I was like, hey, what is your take? Give me your feedback, and we start to discuss some early ideas how we would go around it, building the pipeline and the tech and all of that, and you know the um, the proof was okay. There's there was a lot of questions that I wanted to answer myself as a founder. I was like, let me go found a company. I'll figure out a lot of these questions. I have the time and the resources. Let me go talk to the product manufacturers. Let me figure out what their feedback is going to be like. Let me go talk to the robotics companies. Let me see what their feedback will be like. Let me look at the models and where we are. Because, when we had the idea, I think it's like early Chat GPT 3, and then, you had that moment, and then everybody was like, oh, all about that. And I was like, okay, that's great. That could probably be useful, but figure out exactly how to navigate that. And then, as that progress happened, like, to GPT-4, and now, you have 5 Claudes, all the different models, and we're like, okay, the growth is really crazy. The robotics and the hardware is catching up, and really reiterated the fact that, okay, the data is going to be for humanoid or for physical AI, embodied AI, the big bottleneck, the big kind of friction is going to be the data. So before really bringing the team, which we have now, I wanted to go to the manufacturers, have conversations with companies, and see if they would work with us, if they would give us the products and allow us to digitize them, explain them, how are we going to do that, and why are we going to do that, and on the other side, how that data will be used, and so on.
Got a question here. The team was, I mean, if you're doing this, because this is a hard step, right? And getting out of the comfort zone, getting and talk to a first few customers, doing outreach, cold outreach, and these folks in manufacturing are very special people, right? And especially with someone who doesn't have like per se technology background, like there's no degree in mechanical engineering or computer science. Sometimes people, it takes time to gain their trust, right? And um, how was that for you to go out and even though there's a lot of things that you can, you know, teach yourself and picking up, and especially in that environment, being surrounded by people, because I don't know exactly the team that you assemble, but how is it for you to go there and have this kind of conversation, and what was the feedback? How was that period of time?
Yeah, okay, so two things there, right? You mentioned something about, so I'm the kind of a person who's been self-educated himself my whole life. And there's this wonderful opportunity that basically almost anybody has, right? Is some of these really incredible schools around the world offer remote and accessible courses where you can learn a lot. Although, arguably, I hear from a lot of people now in the AI world that if you go to college now, they will not teach you like the CS programs, like computer science, like they will not teach you what is currently needed in the development of the artificial intelligence or the artificial model race, so it's kind of like, well, do you even go there, or where or what kind of research or what kind of things you should learn. But funny you said that, my background. Yes, I did what I did, but you actually can kind of self-educate yourself, and on top of that, you know you have MIT, you have Caltech, you have Stanford, and all of these wonderful schools who have programs which I signed up for and took and continue to take and continue to sign up for. And even if you just sort of, Duolingo style skim through the curriculum, there is always free lectures, free explainers, and kind of you can look at a lot of the foundations of what is it that you're doing. And so I'm one of those people who, like, I get obsessed about something. I will go all in. Like, I'll sign up for this school course and this course and this course, robotics, computer science, deep learning, or if this type of a robotics course. And a lot of them are free, some of them are paid, and a lot of the lectures are free and they're on YouTube. So I think if you want, you can definitely get the knowledge that you want, and you don't need to go to school for 4 years and sit there and basically prove that you can do your chores, like that you'll show up and do the test. I think that style of learning in college is going to be obsolete by the end of this decade. But you are right that when I call someone, first of all, getting to the right decision maker, right? So I don't want to name, but there's a huge company. They do about $15 billion in revenue. They make products that you would find in store like Home Depot in the US, or here Baumax, Hornbach, and so on in Europe. And I really wanted to connect with them because I thought they cover so many cool brands, and their tools are exactly the kind of tool that I think in the hand of a humanoid would be very useful for people, factories, warehouses, and so on. So I was like, well, that could be a really great partnership. And navigating to a point who would actually be even the right person to connect was a challenge of its own, like figuring out who that person is. So actually, this is where internally, and now with this project that we were just involved in Stockholm, which was wonderful, we build a AI agentic tool that help us, do that, because I just didn't have the time to be able to do this sort of myself. And I reached out to this person, explained to him, got all the way to the CEO level of this huge company. He's like, okay, let me put you to this person. He's the decision maker. He can make the decision. You can pitch him, Revel. Essentially, you guys can talk. And that took about 3 weeks. And then when I finally got to this person, who the CEO said, hey, connect with Brian. He's got something really cool, and I want you guys to talk, kind of like introduction. He's like, yeah, want to talk? Let's talk, Brian. Looping in my assistant, right? She'll put something on the calendar. She put the meeting on for like 3 to 4 weeks out from the time when we were taking. And I was like, wow, like it took 6 to 7 weeks to make this, just this introduction happen. And I was thinking, you look at company like in the AI space, like Lovable, who went from 0 to $100 million in ARR in 8 months. And I'm thinking, like, in 7 weeks, the changes in AI and robotic and everything are so tremendous. Like, you know, you said you're a big movie buff. Have you seen the movie Ford versus Ferrari?
Yeah. Yes. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you
Have
clearly.
you seen it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Do you remember there's a scene where Carl Shelby, played by Matt Damon, goes into the Ford's office and he's about to be fired, and he's asking him, Mr. Ford's asking why you should not be. He talks about that file that passed through like 50 pair of hands before it got to him. And he tells him races are not won by committee. And so when I finally got on a call with this executive, this decision maker, this huge company, and told him what we're working on, I gave him this example and I said, if you guys were still making just manual tools, and I was an inventor standing in front of your factory with a duffel bag full of lithium ion powered power tools, and wanted to partner with you and give you this technology and help you sort of distribute it to millions of people around the world to do something useful. Um, it's just a different world right now. The corporations are not set up for this kind of rapid iteration, technology improvement, and risk taking. And he laughed. I took a little bit of a risk because, essentially criticize his corporation of like, you guys take forever to like even just schedule a meeting. But he took it really well, and he was like, yeah. And then I kind of went on and talked to him about the product a little bit more, and he was like, let's do it. Um, and but we are facing this now with a lot of these product manufacturers. It's 20, 30, 40 years of history or more of manufacturing, big corporations, different levels of executives. So yeah, it's definitely been a challenging part. And to the team, before I was going to start taking any of the team members on Revel out of their jobs and everything, I wanted to make sure that I can go out and get answers from these product manufacturers and see if there was interest, and on the robotic sides as well. Luckily, there's interest, there's support, and we have some good partnerships in the works, and interesting ones and uniques and different kind of angles. And then, the robotics companies, that was like a no-brainer. They basically were like, if you have data right now, we'll just get it tomorrow. If you have data that you can offer us to train our robots, we'll be very, very happy to explore the data that you have in your library. Um, and I think
So,
that's kind of go ahead.
no, I was about to ask, didn't want to interrupt you. I was about to ask, so what's in it for us? So what are the next steps for Rebel?
Well, um, long term, short term, medium term. I mean, short term, I think we want to have about a million products in the library, like million SKUs in the library by the end of this year. Um, Hopefully a couple million by the end of next year, or maybe tens of millions by next year. Um, our mission is really digitize and create digital twins with real physics and all the functionality of um, all of the kind of major products that are in use in the areas that we discussed. So partnering with, our main focus right now is on the partnerships with the product manufacturers and companies that have brands, or large corporations that have multiple brands, and getting them on the excitement and the vision of Revel, and saying, hey, look, these humanoids robots are coming. They're going to start going into hundreds of units into factories and warehouses, and eventually thousands and tens of thousands and millions. The companies that are advancing their technology are investing millions, hundreds of millions, and now maybe even in the billions into developing factories to scale up the production. I just saw a post from a gentleman. He's kind of a robotics guy. He made a post that Foxconn and Nvidia announced that they are going to make their version of a humanoid robot. I don't know if you caught that news.
Chris
Sure you did.
Paxton, I think.
You're staying on top of stuff. Yeah. And so, I was kind of not surprised by that. I think it's a right move from Nvidia. And I also think, like, a lot of people think of making the humanoid robots or the robotics as like a car, manufacturing more like a car. But I think it's way more closer to like a consumer electronic than a car. One, by just the sheer part of volumes and complexity. So the ramp up to millions of units per year produced by a company like Tesla or Figure, Boston Dynamics, and Apptronic, or the others, I think is going to be much faster than like scaling up a production line of car manufacturing to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of cars, because it's just a completely different level of complexity.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that one will play out, because there's some argumentation that this is not the case, and that I think this is something that Brett also said, that the supply chain for humanoids is non-existing at this moment, right? And that they're all still trying to figure out how to scale. But I mean, scaling only makes sense if you figured out a working system, right? And Tesla, for example, just I think put on the pause button because they needed to come up with a few things that weren't working as expected, and the output of units that Elon was promising were needed to be corrected because the new version has different design. But yeah, interesting how one thing led to another, and yeah, this is one of the reasons why I have this podcast. That you never know what's the background of a story, right? You see a post, you see a demo, you see some software, some hardware going on, and yeah, what's behind that, and what is it that makes people so curious, so they need to follow the passion, leaving safe parts and going into different direction and to realize what they have in mind. And I'm very happy that you said yes to the podcast and that you shared this story, which is quite unique because I need to tell you that I had people that had farmers as parents, I had people that had artists as parents. Um, but especially in deep tech, you do see a lot of people that had been in with tech for like not with tech because as you said you have been interested in tech for quite a while, but I'm always very curious, and especially in these kind of stories, because someone who is interested in tech and has engineers as parents and goes to high school and university and studying mechanical engineering or one of those degrees, the path is even though it can go in different direction, it's pretty much this is
Consistent.
sequentially, and coming from a different direction. This is something that I found always very interesting and hopefully inspiring for people. Like you don't need a degree, and you said a few of the very interesting realizations. Right, there's courses out there, and if you're obsessed, you can teach yourself anything you want, right? I have a brother, he just taught himself how to weld, and he's not a welder, right? But he now can weld. And so this is the reason why I'm very happy that you shared this very unique story.
Yeah. And to reiterate, NVIDIA has a tremendous library. We're now kind of working on potentially doing some more of a closer partnership with NVIDIA because the simulation layer that we're working with is heavily kind of, dependent on a lot of the tools that NVIDIA offers. But NVIDIA has so many free courses on AI, robotics, simulation and stuff. So anybody in your audience who really is into this and is kind of obsessed like me, if they have the same kind of drive, they have fantastic courses. You can even become an NVIDIA ambassador and part of their community. They have a really great Discord. They can follow you, right? I think I saw some of the things that you were sharing. MIT has a course that I just recently signed up for as well. And like additional robotics course that it's fantastic so far. Getting through it, it's been really helpful. Caltech, California Institute of Technology has, which is right next to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So a lot of fantastic professors and just curriculum there. If you're obsessed, the information is there, and majority of the information is free. So you do not need to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into, robotics, AI to learn. Stanford has a lot of free CS courses out there as well, curriculums that you can take, and it doesn't matter what age or, level you are. Because if you get into the course and you're like, oh, I need to take this math course, then you just go backwards and you're like, okay, let's get through this math course. And, you know, um, I'm the Duolingo approach to style of this. If it's fun and you're obsessed and you're really into it, you can just you can find a way to get into anything and start shaping your perspective and ideas. And I think that's how innovation happens. Thinking out of the box and just I've been there so many times when I'm looking at people and they're doing something, and someone who has nothing to do with the team or with what I'm working on, let's say in the film industry, they come up and they have fresh pair of eyes and they just say something like, "Oh my God, how did we not think of that?"
Mm,
There's like four experts here, like so close to it. You just kind of zoomed in and you just so deep into it. And then somebody goes like, oh, like, that kind of like, have you guys thought about like plugging it and unplugging it from, it's like, what? And then you do it and they're like, oh, what? It
it
worked.
worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always try to use some quotes from the podcast for the podcast title. So I think in the last few minutes you said a few things that are really vibing with me and what I trying to get out of the episodes. So thanks. That makes my life easier. And thank you for taking the time. I'm keeping an eye on you. And I mean, we were talking about different kind of things because I'm curious on what you guys are doing. And I'm happy that you're not in the US, so we don't need to schedule a 12-hour, like you said. Sometimes it's very hard to get a meeting, because yeah, you were mentioning the Lovable project, and we talked about briefly about Project Europe, and yeah, I'm happy that you're here and trying to yeah, bring this continent and trying to see if we can save it and trying to see if we can yeah have a second revolution or renaissance here, right? And I'm happy that you were part of that.
There's a lot of really great talent here, and I want to make sure that we keep the talent here and that we build infrastructure for the talent to succeed. So this project Lovable with the Project Europe and 20 VCs and Creatum and a lot of the other companies that were involved in that. What an idea, man. How quickly it got together. Stockholm was amazing. And just the level of talent, it just opened my eyes, being, you know, understanding that like this is possible, you know. And I just wanted to back one of the teams, which I did. Uh, Shamelessly, they kind of did something. They did something for, hey, Princess, you're gonna like this. So anyway, talent in Europe is absolutely amazing, and we're definitely in support of doing doing something. You can't hear, you have headphones.
I think this is the right moment to say goodbye,
Yeah.
as I know now everything can happen
Take
from
off
this
your
moment
headphones
onwards.
and then you hear.
Yeah,
Uh,
no problem.
Brian, thank you for your time and talk to you
Hey,
soon.
Shh.
that,
Thanks a lot. Have a
last thing. Just take off your headphones and then I will hear.
okay.
Bye bye.
But
Bye
before we
bye.
do,